The first sign that something was wrong came not from words, but from silence. Aisha noticed it the moment she sat down at the table. The restaurant was warm, glowing with soft golden lights. A violinist played quietly in the corner. It was their 7th wedding anniversary, something she had been looking forward to for weeks. She had chosen his favorite place, worn the dress he once said made her look unforgettable, and even arrived early just to make sure everything was perfect. But when Daniel walked in, he didn't smile. He didn't lean in for a hug. Didn't compliment her. Didn't even look at her the way he used to. Instead, he sat down across from her, straight-backed, distant, like a stranger fulfilling an obligation. Aisha felt it immediately, that quiet, uneasy shift in the air. "Everything okay?" she asked softly, forcing a small smile. Daniel didn't answer right away. He glanced around the restaurant, as if making sure no one was paying attention. Then he looked at her, not with warmth, not with anger, but with something colder. Decision. "I didn't come here to celebrate," he said calmly. The words didn't make sense at first. Aisha blinked. "What?" He exhaled, like someone preparing to deliver a routine update. "I want a divorce." The world seemed to pause. The music continued. Glasses clinked. People laughed at nearby tables. But at their table, everything fell into a strange, heavy stillness. Aisha stared at him, waiting, hoping, for something else. A hint of emotion. A sign that this was anger, frustration, a moment that could be fixed. But Daniel didn't waver. "I've already made my decision," he continued, his voice steady, almost rehearsed. "It's better this way." Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the table. "Better, for who?" she asked quietly. "For me." The simplicity of his answer hurt more than anything else. Aisha swallowed, trying to steady the sudden storm rising inside her chest. "Is there someone else?" This time, Daniel didn't hesitate. "Yes." The word landed like a final blow. "I reconnected with someone," he said. "My childhood friend. We've known each other forever. It just makes sense." Aisha felt her heartbeat echo in her ears. "Her name is Sarah," he added. "And I'm going to marry her." For a brief second, the entire world felt unreal, like she was watching someone else's life from a distance. 7 years. 7 years of memories, struggles, laughter, sacrifices, reduced to a calm announcement over dinner. She expected herself to react, to cry, to question, to break. But none of that came. Instead, something else rose inside her. Stillness. Aisha slowly straightened her posture. Her hands relaxed. Her expression softened, not with sadness, but with something far quieter, acceptance. Around them, a few people had started to notice. Curious glances. Subtle whispers. Everyone was waiting. Waiting for the scene. Waiting for the tears. But Aisha didn't give them that. She picked up her purse, stood up gracefully, and looked at Daniel one last time. There was no anger in her eyes. No pleading. Just a calm, distant clarity he didn't expect. "I hope," she said gently, "it gives you everything you're looking for." And then, without another word, she turned and walked away. No raised voice. No broken glass. No final argument. Just the quiet sound of heels against marble, as she left behind not just the dinner, but the life she thought she had. The night air felt colder than it should have. Aisha didn't remember how she got home. One moment she was walking out of the restaurant, her steps steady, her face calm, and the next, she was standing inside her apartment, keys still in her hand, the silence pressing in from every corner. For a long time, she didn't move. The walls, the furniture, the framed photos, they all looked the same. But nothing felt the same. Her eyes slowly drifted to a picture on the shelf. It was taken years ago, Daniel standing beside her, smiling widely, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. It was the day his small startup had finally opened its first office. Aisha remembered that day clearly. She had been the one who believed in it when no one else did. Back then, Daniel had no investors, no stable income, and more doubts than confidence. He almost gave up more than once. It was Aisha who stayed up with him through sleepless nights, helping him plan, calculate, and prepare presentations. She had even sold her own jewelry to help cover his early expenses, something she never told anyone. "I'll build it for us," he had promised her back then. And she believed him. There were other memories too. Like the winter he fell seriously ill. Weeks in bed, unable to work, barely able to stand. She had taken leave from her own job, stayed beside him, managed his meetings, and kept everything from falling apart. She didn't think twice about it. That's what love was, she thought. Or at least, what she believed it was. But somewhere along the way, things changed. It didn't happen all at once. It was small at first. Missed calls. Late nights that turned into early mornings. Conversations that became shorter, colder. He stopped sharing details about his day. Stopped asking about hers. Even when he was sitting right next to her, it felt like he was somewhere else. Aisha had noticed it all. But she told herself it was just stress. Work pressure. Temporary distance. She adjusted. She always adjusted. Her own dreams, continuing her studies, starting something of her own, slowly faded into the background. There was always a better time that never came. And now, there was nothing left to wait for. Aisha placed her keys down gently and walked further into the room. The silence no longer felt shocking. It felt honest. For a moment, her chest tightened. The weight of everything, the years, the memories, the quiet betrayals, rose all at once. Tears filled her eyes. But they didn't fall immediately. She sat down slowly, staring at nothing, letting the truth settle in. He didn't choose her. Not after everything. The pain was real. Deep. Sharp. But beneath it, something unexpected began to form. Clarity. Aisha wiped her eyes before the tears could fully fall. This wasn't just an ending. It was an answer. All those years of trying harder, giving more, waiting longer. They had led here. And for the first time in a long while, a different thought crossed her mind. Not about him, not about the past. But about herself. "What now?" she whispered quietly. It wasn't a question filled with fear. It was something else. Something new. For the first time, she wasn't thinking about saving the marriage. She was thinking about saving herself. Morning didn't rush in, it arrived quietly. Aisha woke up earlier than usual, her eyes opening before the alarm. For a moment, she lay still, staring at the ceiling, expecting the heaviness from last night to return all at once. But it didn't. The pain was still there, just softer, more distant. Like something she could observe instead of something that controlled her. She sat up slowly and took a deep breath. "Just get through the day," she murmured to herself. Instead of staying inside, she decided to step out. Not to escape, but to move. To feel something different. A small cafe a few streets away caught her attention. It wasn't fancy, just quiet and simple, with large windows letting in the morning light. She had passed it many times before but never gone in. Today, she did. The soft hum of conversation and the smell of fresh coffee felt oddly comforting. Aisha chose a corner table and sat down, wrapping her hands around a warm cup as if grounding herself. For the first time in hours, her mind wasn't racing. "Excuse me. I think this is yours." The voice pulled her out of her thoughts. She looked up to see a man standing near her table, holding her phone. Aisha blinked. "Oh, I didn't even realize I left it at the counter." He gave a small, easy smile. "Happens more often than you think." He wasn't striking or overly polished, just normal. Calm. The kind of presence that didn't demand attention but made things feel steady. "Thank you," she said, taking the phone. "I'm Hamza," he added, as if introducing himself was the most natural thing in the world. "Aisha." There was a brief pause, not awkward, just unhurried. "You look like you needed that coffee," he said lightly, nodding toward her cup. She almost laughed. "That obvious?" "A little," he admitted. But, not in a bad way. Something about his tone made it easy to respond. Not forced. Not heavy. Just simple. They spoke for a few minutes, nothing deep, nothing dramatic. Work, the cafe, small everyday things. But what surprised Aisha wasn't the conversation itself. It was how it felt. He listened. Not the distracted kind of listening she had grown used to, but real attention. No interruptions, no checking his phone, no rush to speak over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. Not as someone's wife. Not as someone holding things together. Just as herself. Meanwhile, across the city, Daniel's morning looked very different. A picture went up on his social media, him and Sarah, smiling brightly at a rooftop brunch. The caption was confident, almost triumphant. New beginnings. The comments flooded in quickly. Congratulations. Excitement. Approval. Sarah laughed as she scrolled through them. See? Everyone already loves us. Daniel nodded, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. There were pauses between their conversations. Small, almost invisible breaks where neither of them knew what to say next. At one point, she talked about moving quickly, about plans, about how things should be. Daniel agreed, but something about it felt rushed. Unfamiliar. Different from what he had imagined. Back at the cafe, Aisha stood up, adjusting her bag. I should go, she said. Hamza nodded. It was nice meeting you. It was, she replied, and meant it. As she stepped outside, the air felt lighter somehow. Nothing had magically changed. Her life wasn't suddenly perfect. But something small had shifted. Not love. Not even happiness. Just possibility. It happened by accident. Daniel hadn't planned to see her again so soon. He was leaving a meeting, distracted, his mind only half focused on the conversation he had just ended. His phone buzzed with another message from Sarah, something about dinner plans, something urgent, something that suddenly felt tiring. As he stepped onto the street, he saw her. Aisha. For a second, he wasn't sure it was really her. She stood near the corner, sunlight falling softly around her. There was no sign of the woman he had left behind the night before. No tears, no visible pain, no heaviness dragging her down. Instead, she looked calm. Lighter. Like someone who had quietly set something down and walked away from it. Daniel's steps slowed. Then he noticed something else. She wasn't alone. Hamza stood beside her, saying something that made her smile, not forced, not polite, but real. The kind of smile Daniel hadn't seen in a long time. Something tightened in his chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. He had imagined something very different. He thought she would be at home, crying, calling him, asking questions, trying to fix things. But she wasn't. She looked okay. More than okay. And that unsettled him in a way he didn't expect. Aisha turned slightly and caught sight of him. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Daniel waited, maybe for anger, maybe for sadness, maybe for something that would remind him of what they had. But her expression didn't change. There was no reaction strong enough to hold on to. Just a quiet acknowledgement, and then she looked away. That hurt more than anything else. Not anger. Not pain. Indifference. Back at his car, Daniel sat in silence, his hands resting on the steering wheel, his thoughts louder than they had been all day. Something felt off. And it wasn't just that moment. It had been building. With Sarah, everything had seemed perfect at first. Easy. Exciting. Familiar in a nostalgic way. But now, small things stood out. The way conversations often revolved around appearances, plans, and expectations. The way she rushed everything, decisions, commitments, timelines. It all felt fast. Too fast. There was no depth. No quiet understanding. No shared history that actually meant something in the present. Just a memory they were trying to recreate. A fantasy. Daniel leaned back, exhaling slowly. For the first time since the divorce, doubt slipped in, quiet, uncomfortable, undeniable. He had walked away so easily. So confidently. But now, watching Aisha move forward without him, he wasn't sure anymore. And that uncertainty stayed with him. Long after she disappeared from view. Daniel didn't plan the conversation. It happened a few days later, outside her office. He had been sitting in his car for nearly 10 minutes, debating whether to leave. But when he saw Aisha step out of the building, something in him pushed forward. Aisha. She turned at the sound of her name. For a brief moment, they simply looked at each other. No tension, no visible anger, just the quiet weight of everything that had already been said and done. "Can we talk?" he asked. There was hesitation in his voice now. Not the certainty he had carried that night. Aisha studied him for a second, then nodded once. "All right." They stood a short distance apart, the space between them calm but clear. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, searching for the right words. I didn't expect things to feel like this." She didn't interrupt. "I thought I was making the right decision," he continued. "Everything seemed so clear before. But now," he paused, exhaling slowly. "I don't know. It doesn't feel the way I thought it would." Aisha listened quietly, her expression steady. There was no rush in her response. No reaction driven by old emotions. "I see," she said simply. Daniel looked at her, almost searching for something, understanding, maybe even a chance. "I just wanted to talk," he added. "To explain." She nodded slightly. "You already did." The words weren't sharp, just honest. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Aisha shifted her bag lightly on her shoulder. "I hope you figure things out," she said, her tone calm, sincere. There was no bitterness in it. No hidden meaning. Just closure. Daniel opened his mouth as if to say more, but nothing came. Because there was nothing left to hold on to. Aisha gave a small, polite nod and stepped past him. A few steps ahead, Hamza was waiting. He glanced up as she approached, offering a quiet smile, the kind that didn't demand anything, didn't rush anything. She returned it naturally. Not as an escape. Not as a replacement. But as something new. Something chosen. Daniel watched as they walked away together, not dramatically, not quickly, just steadily. And for the first time, he understood. Some endings don't come with anger or noise. Just a quiet shift, where one person lets go, and the other finally moves forward.